if you could please tell viewers something about yourself that they probably don't know.
Gee, that's a good question. I love the color purple. How about that? Uh, I've been doing this for about 10 years, and yeah, I don't know, but that's all I got.
All right. Moving on, we are also joined by Scott, SirScoots Smith, the COO of Evil Geniuses eSports talk show live on 3. Scoots, can you introduce yourself to the viewers as well?
Yeah, I'm Scott Smith, go by SirScoots. You already said what I do. I also am COO of OneMoreGame.tv, a broadcasting network with DJ Wheat and some others, some shows much like this one. And my favorite color is blue, and I'm a Virgo.
All right. Also joining in on the discussion tonight is Jerry from vVv Gaming. Now, Jerry, you're probably the most recognized person here in the COD community outside of Sundance, but please let all the viewers know exactly who you are.
Wow, thanks. I'm the president and owner of vVv Gaming. Obviously, we do the podcast show, The Losers Bracket, where we take a little bit more focus on the console side. So that's probably why the Call of Duty community is more familiar. And obviously, we've been supporting Major League Gaming and the other leagues since we've been around in '05. So yeah, thanks.
No problem. Let's see here. All right, and rounding this group up is Kurt Keyhunt Harder from Check 6 Gaming. Kurt, drop some knowledge on who you are. Many viewers may not know what you do in all the behind-the-scenes work here in esports.
Yeah, my name's Kurt. I'm the business development director with Check 6. Big fancy title for I just do whatever's needed. I suppose, one way to start is I started with Counter-Strike with PC, much like Scott, but I quickly fell into Call of Duty for Call of Duty 2 for PC, and something people might know, I probably still think it's the second best game for FPS ever invented. So.
All right. Well, thank you all for your introductions. We're gonna jump right in here now into a little bit of discussion. So now we see it here all the time: Call of Duty pros wanting to be successful or as successful as the StarCraft scene. Now, in all honesty, from an outsider's point of view, how do you view the Call of Duty scene at the moment? Somebody can just hop in here and take it away.
Well, I think I would probably start out by saying I think the Call of Duty community is filled with potential. Potential is the word that I think of when I think of Call of Duty. I don't think they've fully reached that point where they get the same recognition, say, other games do, and I think that's part of the introduction of StarCraft. But I would say that would be the one word I'd apply is potential.
Okay.
Well, we might also go in some sort of order, so why don't we just we'll go around the horn here, so to speak. So first, to go back to kind of the question, and you compared it to StarCraft, and I think it's an unfair comparison to compare, at least for what we all do, a team-based game to an individual 1v1 duel type game, because they're marketed different, the players are different, it's a different dynamic within the sport, if you will. Mm-hmm. I would then say exactly what Jerry said, full of potential and full of potential huge growth for years to come, is how I see Call of Duty for sure, with a lot of speed bumps along the way.
Of course.
Yeah, just to chime in here, I mean, like Jerry said, potential is a big thing. My thing is I probably love the most about the COD community is I like how dedicated a select few are. Mm-hmm. And for that matter, all of them are, but especially a select few. You see a lot of people doing amazing things. Justin here, Emily, you, Nadeshot does amazing stuff. You get Golden Boy and Midget King, and all those guys do really amazing things, for the COD community. That is a thing that StarCraft has, and it's a thing that Counter-Strike had. There's a thing that a lot of communities had that have really been successful, is someone to step up and go, hey, I'm going to work my ass off for you guys to make a better community. If we can just possibly get everyone on the same page within the community to help them out, I think you'll see things go a lot better.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I've run into, and with MLG, we've had a lot of experience with running different games and seeing communities expect overnight success. And I think the interesting thing about Call of Duty is if you look at from a sales perspective in terms of units sold and an audience base, it's the biggest game out there, right? You've got these organizations who've got huge players who are big stars on YouTube with tons of followers and subscribers, generating tons of views, and these teams such as Optic or Quantic have got pretty big standings. But the issue is that we've got to find a way to convert what we're doing to be a little bit more acceptable or approachable to the broader audience. You know, a lot of the success that we had with Halo was kind of by brute forcing it. And I don't think that Activision nor you know, the developers really want to brute force it. They're supportive of it, and you've seen what they've done with Elite. But there's a lot of work to be done, and I think that you're going to see it be a couple of years before it gets to a place where it's really realized even, you know, half of the potential that's there within that title and within that community.
All right. Does anyone else have anything to chime in with before we go? No?
Nope.
All right. Now, how do you feel that Call of Duty in esports is growing? Do you feel it's rapid? Do you feel it's slower than it should? Is it on point? I mean, like, I think we all can agree that there is much, you know, to work on here. But how do you feel it's going in regards to, even though you can't compare it to StarCraft, but in regards to Halo or Gears or anything or any game for that matter?
I think the nature of the I was going to say I think the nature of the game brings some challenges. I mean, whereas Gears, I think is a little bit easier for the general audience to jump into and spectate. Call of Duty and Halo are both a little bit more complex, so I think Halo is a more fair comparison. And to my comment earlier, you know, I think our expectations have changed. We see some, you know, and not to compare it to StarCraft, and I keep saying that, but there is that expectation. We have to think about competition for a person's time, or at least that's how I view it. You know, if I'm going to watch a stream and the most popular stream is StarCraft, and I'm the general person that's getting introduced to esports, that's one challenge. But when I go back to my potential comment, like, you know, is the growth been good? There's a large Call of Duty community, obviously huge. Now, how that professional community reaches across that line to bring them into the game, that's probably our biggest challenge, is sort of something that Sundance said. And I think that's where maybe it's been a little bit slow, just because maybe there hasn't been enough focus or enough education and training to get the top players to reach out and bring those fans into the game.
Well, I think my catchword for the Call of Duty communities, and I'll say plural because that is one of the problems. There is no Call of Duty community. There's several Call of Duty communities. You know, the old schoolers will say Call of Duty 4, PC. Everybody else, shut up, get out of my house, right? Everything else is a ripoff. And then the other problem with the game is you keep having new versions dropping, right? So some sort of unification. Because on top of all the new versions you keep getting, you have multiple platforms for your game. That does not make for an even playing field for the best of everybody to come together and play and put a crown on somebody. You don't have StarCraft players or Counter-Strikers playing on consoles, different consoles, and PC, right? So all these other things that you're kind of using as examples are kind of a solid single platform, or at least one has won the day. So, and your game is extremely popular because it's all these different flavors. If I'm a PC guy, I can buy it. If I'm a PS3 guy, I got it, right? So that's what also makes those numbers so big. But that's also a big challenge. Like, where do you all play competitively? You play all over. And again, there's varying versions, and they're going to keep being they keep making this money when they drop this game. You think they're going to stop making versions? StarCraft is going to have a StarCraft expansion, but it's going to build, and the whole community is going to travel along. So the question is, will the Call of Duties find one home and then move to each version? That's Sundance's challenge. She wants to build a base. We want to build a base. And that's where you're fragmented. You're huge numbers, but you're fragmented. Unification.
Yeah, and to talk a little bit about more, you know, about them being fragmented. Another big thing is the fact that you have the YouTube community and you have the competitive community, which I have seen slowly start to, you know, to really bridge that divide a little bit. But there's still a pretty big divide in viewership. Now, you get the people like, you know, the amazing people at Optic who do amazing YouTube content and also support competitive scene. I think they're helping a ton, to be honest. I really like what they're doing. But at the same time, it doesn't necessarily mean they figured out a perfect way to actually get their viewership from COD videos over to COD at MLG. And I think Sundance will speak probably best to that. The fact that those numbers haven't necessarily bridged over yet, but hopefully they can, because I think that's one of the biggest important things is to be able to bridge those two.
Okay, now moving on a little bit. Now, how do you think players should approach either organizations or companies for sponsorship? Now, my kind of view of the Call of Duty communities, as you'd like to say, is that there's a lot of immaturity. You have ages anywhere from, the 12 or 13 ranging all the way up from, upper 20s. So there isn't really a way, I guess, for them to handle themselves. Now, how do you feel that they should come to you or other organizations in regards to what they're looking for?
I mean, I think the most important thing is making sure that you know the organization you're applying to, that this is not one size fits all. The things that Evil Geniuses needs from their players is different from what VV Gaming needs. And that's not to say there isn't a large overlap, but the flavor is very different, right? I expect when I see the EG brand that I'm going to get the best players in the world that, at that caliber of level. VV Gaming may not necessarily be at that level. We have a broader audience. We have a different model. Know who you're applying to, and most importantly, be prepared to answer the tough question. If I spend $1 on you, start by telling me how I'm going to get that $1 back, just to break even. If you don't have an answer for that, right? If you tell me you're going to wear my shirt, or you're going to quote unquote represent me, I need to know what that means in money. And I need to see examples of you doing that. And I'm going to really, Scott, I think I want you to jump in here, because I think the demands you make, are probably greater than ours. And I do believe, Emily, to your question, I think players need to be educated on that. I think that's an important component of what we need to do.
Again, I would piggyback with, again, what you said, Jerry. A lot of it is that very basic stuff. Whether it's a Call of Duty team or a Dota 2 team or another StarCraft 2 player or a Counter-Strike team, all of us, for all our own metrics, need to weigh the ROI. What you're going to spend into that division, whether it's travel, salaries, flights, or just online stuff, and what you're going to be able to get back out. Whether it's marketing their brands and your brands, and is that a worthwhile engagement for all parties involved? And again, for us, for Evil Geniuses, at this point, Call of Duty right now has not been that way. Doesn't mean in the future it won't be, certainly, but it has in the past. We had a Call of Duty 4 team, a pretty darn good one, actually. So how they can, I guess one of my biggest pet peeves is a lot of people that aren't pros call themselves pros. Right? And they somehow think that by calling themselves a pro, that people like me are going to believe them, right? So I get emails all the time from all sorts of different gamers.
Semi-pro.
Yeah, well, again, someone who's a pro at something makes a living doing it. If I go to a weekend golf tournament, me and my buddies, we throw our money in the kitty, we go to a golf tournament down the street here in Phoenix and win a tournament, and I win money. Win my entry fee back and some cash. I am not a pro golfer, all right? And that's what a lot of stuff happens here. You go to a tournament, you win something, you win some money, and you're now a pro. You're not. A pro is when you make a living. And there's actually very few in all of gaming that are pros at it, across all sorts of divisions. So I think it gets back to that swag conversation we kind of had off stream. Like, there's too much bravado. You can't bullshit a guy like me. You can't bullshit a guy like Jerry or a guy like Kurt or a guy like Sundance. So if you're going to approach us, because get back to your question, Emily, about how to approach us about sponsorships. Number one, I don't sponsor people. I am a professional team that has sponsors. So you are engaged to come play for our team. Evil Geniuses doesn't sponsor players. Evil Geniuses signs and manages players. So I think that's, while a verbal and a word, it is different. We have sponsors. We have partners, right? So I'm not going to sponsor you. I'm going to hire you, for lack of a better word, to play for us. So how do you do that? Whether you're young or old, you need to kind of understand or do your research as to how it works. Like Jerry said, we need to know what you can provide for us for what you want. So basically, anyone who approaches me who I want to engage with, they send me an email. It seems pretty well written. It's not full of spelling errors. You know how to spell the word sponsor, and you would be absolutely surprised how many people spell the word sponsor incorrectly.
A lot.
Right? Like, that's instant delete. You could be like Moon to me, and I'm going to, StarCrafter. Anyway, so like, be professional in what you write and what you say, and we'll engage you back. I'll say, hey, tell me a little bit more about your team. Tell me a little bit more about yourself. But don't come at me like, dude, you really got to sponsor me. We are top 7 in game battles every weekend. Like, because we'll all do our research. We know if I haven't heard of you, generally in some of the big games, you know what I mean? Like, you're probably not as big as you think you are. So put your swagger to the side and give us your achievements. Give us what you can do for the organization. Why I want my business to engage with your team or as a player. Yeah, and again, don't try to tell us more. I don't know how to phrase it any other way than, like, a lot of people approach me and try to tell me like what I do and like who they are. Generally, I'll know who they are, and it's kind of funny. Anyway.
Okay, now touching a little bit onto what I believe it was Kurt had talked to a little bit about YouTube. Now, does marketing ability or YouTube or anything like that play into, I guess, sponsorship or playing for a team or becoming something or someone that you're looking at?
If nobody has any objection, I'd like to handle this one because this one sort of hits close to something that upsets me. I'm going to hop in. I really mean this more. This is such an important point about how you're going to add value to an organization. Everybody who follows vVv probably knows who EG is, probably knows who MLG is. We're all in the same community. We're all in the same world. Somewhere out there, there's somebody on Xbox Live right now, I'm just going to use this example, playing Call of Duty, who doesn't know about Major League Gaming, doesn't know that there's a competitive Call of Duty community, right? I need to know you can get them. I need you to know you can get them involved in vVv, in our brand, in our sponsors, in our partners. I need to know you have that ability. Does YouTube provide that, Emily? Absolutely, it does. It does provide an outlet for people to recognize certain players. But now, that's great. But now, how do you bring that to vVv? How much do you know about vVv that you can tell all of your fans, if you even have them, right? I'm talking about somebody who's already established, let alone someone who has nothing. How can you tell them about what Major League Gaming is doing, what the competitive Call of Duty community is about? And it's something Scott said, I do think at the Call of Duty community, I saw this in Gears of War in the early days, a lot of players want to be known by a small clique of players who call themselves professional, to Scott's point. But that's not what we want. That's not what we need. We need the players who can reach out to a broader audience. And, there are bad boys in games. You could argue Idra is a bad boy, but there's so much more in that scene besides Idra that you can have a bad boy. Call of Duty, I think, is different. You need a lot of really brand champions, people who really come out of the woodwork and are upstanding citizens first. You need that first. Then you can afford a bad boy here or a bad boy there or a bad girl for that matter. But you first need that solid line. So I think at the end of the day, it really is about that. And Kurt, I probably took your turn, so I'll probably pass it back to you.
No, it's fine, Jerry. I mean, you're completely right. And to talk about what you sort of touched on earlier about how everything seems to be a little bit different for each one, and they need to know the organization which they're applying for. I think that's a good point too. I mean, anybody that applies for an organization, I would say, needs to do a little bit of research on the organization. If you apply for an organization like vVv or Check6, it might be a little bit different than applying for EG, or actually just even messaging Scott, or anything like that. My numbers and what I'm looking for might be completely different than what he's looking for. But what I can tell you is from, at least for me, I would say the biggest thing with me is don't think that you're just simply you saying, I'm here to endorse your sponsors is the only thing I'm looking for. I can get endorsements otherwhere. I'm not looking for just endorsements. You have to give me, I have to be able to pull some kind of ratio from you that only 20% of that is endorsements. Only 20% of that, I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about the reach in which you are, the reach in which you can get to show that, the sponsor stuff. It's not necessarily has anything to do with, I use their stuff, so it must be the best. And I think that's a good point. And to talk about YouTube, to me, that's one of the biggest things that does that. I mean, we support a lot of people that do YouTube content in StarCraft. We have we recently picked up Maximus Black, and we did also HD StarCraft is on our team as well. YouTube, to me at least, is a really big part of that, because I'm not looking for just endorsements. But I want to hear Sundance on this point, because he probably knows more than any of us about, especially about reaching a market. So, Sundance, what do you think, buddy?
Well, I think the real issue that players need to understand is that how many brands are actually going to put themselves out there and be supportive of a team-based game, let's say Call of Duty at the moment, right? So you've got obviously a couple of headset manufacturers, maybe a couple of small cottage industry products, an energy drink or two, but there's not a lot of brands that are running at this at the moment, and it's for a couple of reasons. So number one, I think that the community itself is viewed as not incredibly mature, and by mature, I'm not talking about the way it behaves. I'm talking about it being around and being something that you can look back and see a history to it. And I'm not saying that MLG is the end-all be-all. As Scoots mentioned, there's a strong history to this game outside of what we've done at MLG. Some people will stick to the PC being the core, and that everything else is ridiculous. But if that's going to develop and that's going to grow, it's going to require some track record. Like, you've got to be able to say that, year over year, this is the type of engagement, the audience is growing. There's this many events that we can count on going to, but more importantly, it's not even what you do at an event. I've seen players who are mediocre in terms of their win-loss do really well on the sponsor side of things or on the endorsement side of things because they're spokespeople, because they're the type of person that you look at and you're like, that's somebody I want to represent me. So that's the first thing. Is I think these players need to understand that, honestly, I could give a shit how many games you've won. It's how do you carry yourself when you win? How do you carry yourself when you lose? Am I going to put time in? Am I going to be willing to babysit you and hold your hand? And that's not even me. I don't even sponsor anybody. This is the conversations I've had with brands and brand managers. Mm-hmm. Second to that, I think, again, you've got to understand, this game, the history of this game as being a viable option is incredibly short for any brand to look at. Show me a success of a brand attaching themselves to this game and seeing a lot of growth or having a lot of aha moments. I mean, this year, with MLG, we struggled to get audience, right? So we had StarCraft blow up, Halo fall off, and Call of Duty kind of, bounce back and forth, but never really reached the potential we'd hoped. There's more in the works there, but the fact of the matter is that it's got to break through in order to have a breakout year. And I think, maybe with some of the stuff we're talking to Activision about and some of the plans they have, that can happen. But at the moment, I think that the biggest thing the community needs to understand is that they haven't earned it yet. You got to keep working. It'll come to you if you work, but this desire for overnight success and recognition isn't going to happen.
Okay, now kind of staying on here, but kind of branching off a little bit. Scoots, what do you think a team or an individual player can do to make themselves more attractive to an esports organization or a potential sponsor?
Well, again, so there's definitely a chunk of stuff that's outside of a player or a team's control. So that falls into like Sundance's job and Sundance's work. So that is definitely something we look at. So a lot of stuff, before I get to your question, has nothing to do with the player. Like, if they have nowhere to play, if they have nowhere of note to play, then that automatically, on this level, kind of negates some team's engagement, right? Like, they need a field to go play at where there's an ROI. There needs to be streams and all that. So if we get to the point where we go, oh, God, look at all these events, we need a team, then what do we look at? Well, some sort of personality within the team itself and some players. Not every player on a team game especially is going to be super attractive, super camera friendly, super perfect as your spokesperson. But you're going to kind of need one or two. We will need one or two. And again, I will speak for EG. You can look at who we recruit and why we recruit. And, you need to have that spokes guy. Because, again, it's about getting that guy in front of your brand, his own brand, his team's brand, so to speak, his players, and your sponsors and partners. So someone has to give that speech, give that story in every division. And the more they can do it while they're winning tournaments, the better. Is that the first thing we look for? Absolutely not. So you got your skill set, right? The guys have to be good. We are the kind of team that looks for people that are already good. And we get some grief on that in the StarCraft side because we go after known players versus grab an unknown and hope, right? We have the wherewithal to invest into an ROI that already exists, so to speak, a known player. So we tend to do that. So in your world, we would look at who's won lately if we were going to go in and go, okay, are they contracted? What did they do for their last sponsor? What were their engagements like? How were they in interviews? How are they when they win? More importantly, like Sundance said, how are they when they lose? And not only how are they when they, camera-wise in interviews in bad manners, good manners, but how do they bounce back from a loss from this tournament to the next? Did they get their butt kicked at the MLG and come back and win the next one? Like, where is their intestinal fortitude? And again, that also goes back to Sundance's point of there's not a whole lot of history here yet. I don't have 5 seasons of an MLG to go back and go, okay, which player, which players, which team? Like, there's been 1 season, right? So, and all those things. Their age, it's kind of an issue for me. Like, your community is young, and you have some older players, but, like, let's take Leverage, for example, right? Because that's how I got to know Quantic and talk to those guys via Leverage, and yada, yada, yada. That's how they now are ended up in the StarCraft scene. So I kind of know more about Leverage than almost any other Call of Duty team other than, like, the Hastros worlds, right? Very young, right? Very, very young guys. Doesn't mean they're not mature. Doesn't mean they don't get it, but they're young. So instantly for someone on the level of EG to engage someone who's 16 or 17, that means the parents are involved because they cannot sign a contract with us. That means that they are beholden in their decision-making to someone else. And that's not a bad thing. That's just a fact of life. If your very best Call of Duty player on the planet is grounded because he didn't do well in school, that's not good for me. Now, and again, that's where Jerry and I maybe differ on who he picks up and how he cares. But, like, that kid needs to be on a plane to go to Intel for a photo shoot tomorrow, and he's been grounded? And it doesn't mean that older people can't get in some sort of trouble, but that is the kind of stuff we look at, right? He can't go to a tournament because his parents won't let him, So, and again, we've had very young players. Nothing started his competitive Counter-Strike team like World at the age of 15. And again, very supportive parents. Let him go do those things. And that allowed him to get better and better and better, right? They allowed their son to pursue his dream, much like a young gymnast or whatever. So, but that's something that I don't have to deal with maybe an older community, right? A more seasoned veteran community is going to have older pros, right? I can't go recruit 5 Hastros, can I? Or can I, right? So maturity at whatever age, and then you hope to God if they're of that younger age, that maybe you see something there that you're like, all right, these kids get it, we can work with them. But it scares a guy like me because, again, those things are out of his control. And I probably rambled a little bit there, but because there's a lot to it, right? There's a lot to it. But again, before I even look at a player, I have to look at the game and his scene and go, can we send him anywhere? So that's where I defer to Sundance and go, if we're talking about Call of Duty, we're talking about 2012. What's up, brother? I know.
Right. No, I mean, and I think to what you said is really true. I mean, I think we, where Scott and I differ is that I can deal with that because I don't want to say there's less at stake, but there is less at stake, right? I am going to invest less in a player than EG is going to invest in a player. We position ourselves differently in the esports community than EG does, right? There are plenty of people trying to be EG, and no offense to those who are trying. From the beginning, we decided, you know what, there was going to be one niche that no one was going to shoot for, and if we got to that niche, it would be important. That's developing players as well as educating the community, because I think like Sundance, like Scott, like everybody in this conversation, and those that are paying attention, I love it. Like this, I want to kick back one day and open my newspaper, or actually I'm not going to be opening a newspaper, to be honest with you. You're looking on my phone and I'm going to be reading, some esports scores. I'm going to see what, EG and vVv and Check 6 and whatever brands survive this or come up are doing that day, because, I don't know, this is ours. And I want the community, the Call of Duty players, to feel that way too. That it's not about swag, that it's not about your wins or losses, that it really does matter how much you get this big picture. And what we do today, what you've done today, some of the things Scott looks at, we look at too, but the one thing that we look at more is that potential, not because we're like grabbing and hoping, but because we know that, if I had a player, I say this to Scott all the time, if I had a top StarCraft player who really busted out, and Scott said, Jerry, I think he's ready for EG, we're going to salary him and all that, that's where he should go. Right, he should go to AEG. He should go to an organization that is going to provide him more that brand image is different than VV Gaming. He's outgrown us, and that's a good thing. That's a great thing, right? That's what we want our players to do. Whenever I see EG get flack on StarCraft, I think, you know, you're missing the point. We need EGs and organizations like EG to drive the hard business value, to say, you know what? We need our sponsors to realize the value, the players to realize the value. In the business, we'd say that's across the entire value chain, from the fans to the leagues to everyone. We need that. Just like I say, we need organizations like VV Gaming. Our job is to be that introductory point for competitive gaming. And then, you know, if we have the 4th or 5th ranked team, and I'm being honest, we get these cheap, that's good. We don't need that number 1 ranked team. But for EG, and we need them, we need the EGs and the complexities and Check 6 and anyone who's trying to be at that level, we need them because we have to drive the external business partners to understand the value. When I think of Huck or I think of Idra, I think of players who make a living playing StarCraft. I can't do that yet in Call of Duty, to Scott's point earlier. And it's going to take the community and the players, right, to do something to come to that level where they can position themselves so that one day they are making a living at Call of Duty. And I don't mean making a living that you won $250,000 at an event in LA, and now you're just going to drain that money over the next 4 years. That's not a consistent salary with a long-term career opportunity. Whereas in StarCraft, I think there are a lot more opportunities, just as an example.
And if Emily, I know we're short on time, but if I just want to chime in real quick on what he was saying, I couldn't agree more with both of them, but I want to add just one point. I mean, another thing with me personally, and once again, this is just, you know, for Check 6, I look for teams that are, I think the community itself can actually support the teams themselves. It doesn't have to be just the player that actually wants to get sponsored. It can be the community as a whole. I mean, support the teams that are actually looking to support COD teams. Jerry has supported COD teams in the past. Scoots, although PC, has supported COD teams in the past. I've supported a COD team in the past. Quantic currently still supports a COD team. Support all these teams and their sponsors, and I guarantee they'll come back to the game eventually. I mean, like I said, I had a team for a very short amount of time. And you know, it would make me want to go back a lot more into COD if I saw a ton of support from COD while I had a COD team. Yeah, so that's just something I wanted to add.
Okay, now Sundance, kind of stepping away and getting your point of view here. There's been a problem with some organizations in the Call of Duty community giving false hope in regards to sponsorship or support for a team or even an individual player. Do you have any recommendations on them for looking for legitimate sponsors?
Well, I mean, I think, you know, the first thing I'll say is if something seems too good to be true, it's probably not true. So this is, you know, the unfortunate reality is that there's a little bit of a predatory landscape within the gaming environment when you're looking at kids who are looking for sponsorship or players who are just trying to get themselves out there and find a way to get to, you know, that level of awareness where they can get some money in the bank to help fund their the activity. But in terms of legitimacy, I mean, look, you've got 3 organizations on the phone right now that, you know, are obviously have a history, and you can, you know, thanks to Google, you can pretty much do a background check on anybody within about 5 seconds. I think the biggest thing is, you know, to think about who you're talking to, where you're going, and what you're asking for, right? If you're going out there and you're talking to somebody at a vVv, you know, there's a ton of community members within that organization who can tell you exactly what it's about, what Jerry expects, what he's going to stand for, and what he's going to require. So, you know, that's an example. If it's an EG, guess what? Unless you're one of the best in the world, they'll call you. You know, it depends on who you're going to. And Check 6, again, you know, do they even run the game? Are they interested in it? You know, you can be sure if you find a pro team who's not running or sponsoring anybody within this category at the moment, you know, yeah, send them a note, but don't expect them to come back and say, oh, it sounds like a great idea. We didn't even realize that there was potential there. You can be sure if there's potential within a game or community, they've already identified it, and they've already, you know, got a list of names of people that they would want to talk to if they're going to go there. I think the best thing to do is start local. If you're a small team, you know, try and round something up locally. Try and do something. Try and look for examples of, you know, bug Kim Rom over at SteelSeries. See if maybe you can get a little bit of something out of him to help get your name out. Go to people who've supported the scene and been a part of other people's attempts to get noticed. And be creative. I mean, we've seen people get sponsorships all over the place. It's just, you can't expect to automatically be on the level of the big boys unless you've proven yourself. And I think no matter who you are in the Call of Duty scene, with the exception of, I'll say, 4 or 5 teams, you're starting at ground zero. It's just, again, your one-loss record doesn't matter. I mean, until we come out and figure out what's happening this year, you can't even go to a Jerry or a Scoots, and say, hey, I'm going to be at this many events. You don't know what this U.S. scene is going to be like until Activision announces what their thinking is with Elite going into XP, or what we announce with what we're going to do. So, I think you just have to gather the information first. You got to think about how you're presenting yourself. Think of it as a job or college interview. Don't try and sell somebody bullshit. Put something out there that's realistic, but and be factual, and be approaching people that are, that are going to be interested in it, or that you think you can convince. So, for example, I would not send an email unsolicited to someone at Red Bull or Monster, right? Because they're already tied up in this. They've got activity going on, right? If you want to get noticed, talk to the players who are sponsored by those brands. Ask them where they started, what they did to get noticed. Right? Try and create a resume for yourself that's impressive. Try and learn from people who've already been through it. Going to brands at the age of 15, 16 without any history, guess what? The next time you go back, and they say no to you, next time you go back to them in a year or 2 years, what if they remember that obnoxious email you sent where you said you had all this swag and you were the best player on the planet and you could no-scope anybody and Optic was garbage? Like that stuff, you don't need to go that route. You got to go the route of professionalism, I think. So my point of view on it is, don't start at the top. Work your way up. I get a lot of emails asking for help on sponsorship. I don't sponsor players. I'm a league. I will sometimes broker deals between brands and players, but even that I do less and less. But I will write letters of recommendation on behalf of organizations or players who've proven that they're worthy of it. But again, I take those very, very seriously. So somebody who starts out by sending me an email saying that they're the best player that I've ever seen, they just can't get a chance, and Xbox Live sucks, and Game Battles is crooked, that's not going to help. Everything you put out there, think of it as representing yourself and being something that people are going to go back to when the time is right, when you have actually got a resume.
Okay, now Jerry, I'm going to direct this one towards you. In regards to professionalism, I mean, we all know that plays a big part in getting even noticed by a sponsor. Obviously, Twitter is a very big tool for everyone, whether it be personal or professional. Some people have both. Why is it important for a player or a team to watch what they tweet?
I mean, I think at one level that's obvious, but I'm glad you asked the question because we require our members. I mean, if you apply to vVv, you have to use Twitter, and the reason is because of the whole value chain. The only way SteelSeries knows you exist, the only way that any sponsor knows you exist, the only way that you can spread the news of MLG to your friends is by Twitter. Twitter is your living document. This shows me, like Facebook, what you do. I get players all the time that say, can I have a gaming Twitter and a vVv Twitter? I say no. Can I have a gaming Facebook? I don't want closeted gamers in vVv. This is what we do. We believe in this. This is our business. This is our sponsor's business. I don't want you to have a gaming Facebook and a personal Facebook. You can adjust your settings, right? If you want to show pictures of what you did this weekend, you don't want your gaming friends to know, that's fine. Just like you don't want your job to know, right? That's allowed. That's what Facebook is for. But don't come to me thinking that we're not really savvy about social media. I can guarantee you all of our partners are very savvy about social media. I tell this to players all the time. I've never once been asked by a potential sponsor who sponsors us about a player's win-loss record. The first question I get every single time is show me their social media use. Every time. Show me their Facebook and Twitter. The second thing I get asked, which we're not good at, I'm not as good at, say, as EG is, I get asked, show me an interview with that player. And sometimes I have to scramble because they're looking for a video interview to see how the player carries themselves, right? That's also important. Scott, if you can help me out here, what's your Quake player's name?
Which one?
Your top, I'm sorry?
Dahang.
Dahang, thank you. One of the examples I got by SteelSeries was somebody showed me a Dahang interview once and said, he does a really good job. You have to have this kind of body of work, at least, if you want people to start to recognize you're doing well. And Sundance said earlier, you have more work to do. Well, part of your more work to do, and I hate to do this, but just as a quick example, when a young filmmaker or a guy who wants to shoot commercials comes into the world, he shoots commercials for spec. That means it's a speculative commercial. I want to get a job doing something for Coca-Cola, so I will make a commercial for Coca-Cola to show them what I want to do. Well, if you're somebody who believes that you're a great player and you can represent me well, how about you do a vVv promo video? Show me what you can do for my brand, or do a SteelSeries promo video. Show me your Twitter activity. Like right now, if you're a Call of Duty player listening to this, did you retweet ESFI's show to show the world that you're paying attention to this? If you did, good. If you didn't, you're not as valuable as the person who did. You need to understand that. The person who right now is on Twitter giving everybody else, you need to be paying attention to this, because I'll tell you what, ESFI has brought all these people together to have this show. You need to promote that brand. You need to tell them about, hey, they're talking about the Call of Duty community. And if you're not tweeting about that, right, if your Twitter is the fight you had with a team, or somebody, you know, cheated you on game battles and you're we say QQ, or complaining about it, that's fine. But what you should be doing is thinking that I'm going to grade you by your history of tweets. I'm going to grade you by how you show yourself. So if you can do those things, then you are doing the right things. That's why it's so important.
Yeah, and just... Oh, go ahead, Scott.
To jump on the point of like player social media and why it's important, it is that direct conduit to a fan base that is fantastic. Forget the marketing side of it, which is exactly what Jerry said. It's the first thing everyone asks us. What is EG's social networking like? What is our strategy for 2012? What are your players doing? Right? So, in wins and losses, because again, just like in real sports, you're going to win, you're going to lose. You're going to win, you're going to lose. You're going to win, you're going to lose, and you hope you win more than you lose. But you're not going out of business if you win or you lose, right? And you're not staying in business if you win or you lose. It's going to happen a lot. And we're far more volatile than real sports in our skill levels, right? So that is the least equation. You got to be good, you got to be able to compete, step in that server, but then it's about everything else outside. You ask any of the top pros, the big ones, the ones that get paid across many different games, and they'll tell you their out-of-game commitments to their brands and their sponsors and their own brand, they never thought would be so important and so much of their job, right? In some regards, stepping into the server and playing their game is the easiest thing they do and the most natural thing they do for being a pro. So back to Twitter, it's an instant, like, look at Day 9, look at Sundance. How many Twitter followers do they have? That's their fan base, instantly accessible to them. Hey, check out this headset. Hey, check out this video. That shit we all know works, right? So you have to have a lot of followers. You want your fan base to touch base with you, and then you got to kind of act semi-professional, right? Or your voice needs to be yours. It needs to be legit, and it needs to be fairly professional, right? Everyone's a little different. Like, I can't sit here and say all my players are like the perfect Twitter angels. I'm not the perfect Twitter angel. That's why I started laughing, Emily, when you asked Jerry about Twitter, because Jerry and I are notorious for like having these like Twitter aids.
We troll Twitter quite well, yes.
You have to know your demographic, and you have to then speak to them, right? So, and we're all allowed to be a little rawer, I think, in some regards. So, but it's very important. I could not stress social media. Like one of the teams that most recently sent me some information, and I won't say what game division, I won't say what players, that was very nice and detailed. They said, hey, here's who we are, blah, 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 blah. Here's my Facebook, here's my Twitter, here's my YouTube. Like they were, like the light bulbs are kind of going off, like, oh, these guys get it. They see where they need to show me, right? And that, because that's what the fans want. So if you're doing it, that means your fans are getting it, which means my brand gets it, which means you get it.
Yeah, I just want to add something real quick. Just, I mean, other than how important it is, I want you to look at, it's not just, like, you know, both were talking about, it's more how you use it, too. But I want to talk real quickly about the fact that a lot of the COD community has this, you know, sort of StarCraft envy going on, and I get it. I have the same envy for Counter-Strike daily as I weep and cry myself to sleep. But but the thing is I want people to know is the StarCraft community, especially the people who are known in the StarCraft community, the Day 9s, the HD StarCraft, and the players for that matter, did not come out of the StarCraft community by osmosis. They came out of the StarCraft community from hard work. Day 9 does a live video every day, sometimes 2, not to mention 3 podcasts and all the stuff he does for his website. HT StarCraft didn't get 500,000 subscribers on his YouTube by osmosis. He uploaded 10 videos a day for the past year. This is all hard work. It's not something that you can tweet, "I'm eating burritos for dinner." Yeah. It doesn't work like that. You have to figure out something that actually interests people rather than just, complaining about a rule set or anything like that. Give us give your fans a little bit more credit than that and put out some decent content.
All right, bear with us, guys. We're gonna take a quick break, run to an ad, and we will be right back to you. Guys, welcome back. We're kind of going to jump in here to a new topic, and we're going to start out with, I guess I'll direct this to Kurt here. Now, well aware that a stable roster is more attractive to a sponsor, but could you inform the viewers on your point of view as to why roster stability is so important and you're not focusing on just a specific player?
Well, I could probably rant on this for days. I hope I don't really have to. I hope people understand that roster stability is a really big thing. Not only, let's just look at the pure headaches it is for me. Okay, let's forget everything else. Let's forget how much work I put into trying to grow that individual player, whether it be through Twitter, whether it be through Facebook, whether it be through telling my sponsors about him constantly. Let's just look at the pure headaches it is for me, like having to, remake a contract for a new player, or possibly just having to get another team, period. That's however unfortunate. When we picked up Resistance, which was the only Call of Duty console team we had for a short amount of time, they, after one event, after a bad losing streak, they died off. And it's all because of 1 or 2 players that said, hey, let's not do it anymore. So oftentimes, roster instability isn't just roster instability, it's team instability, and teams are just going to peace out right after. And that's really bad for us, especially after all the time we put into stuff, all the gear we put into stuff, although we would get gear like that back in that circumstance. It's still, it's a lot of time, money, and just pure resources invested into something. And that's something that EG has always been amazing at. EG, you almost never see EG pick up a team, especially now, or a player that will leave a few months after, or will just quit the game a few months after. It virtually never happens. Now we try to do the same thing, but we also don't follow the same luxury either sometimes. But it's still probably one of the biggest things, and when we're making our decision, is how long the team has been together, and then everything else sort of falls in line with that.
Okay, now Jerry, what do you feel that the Call of Duty community needs to do and to reach out to become that bigger community that was mentioned earlier?
I think in a lot of ways one of the important things is that we need infrastructure. And when I use the word infrastructure, I mean that, think about when you watch football. I know that I have zero connection personally to any of the Chicago Bears football players. I don't know any of them personally. But because of the news, the casters, the commentary, the specials, the media that's created around it, I may know certain things about the players, things that make me connect to them. So when I think about StarCraft, because of the work of Day 9 and others, I could go on, sometimes when Scott and Marcus, DJ Wheat have somebody on their show, and I'm listening and I'm connecting to the players, we need that. So, talking about Golden Boy, earlier, we need people who are passionate about Call of Duty to do the hard work. Gears of War needs it. Halo needs it. Everyone needs it always. We need the infrastructure. We need people to write articles. We need ESFI to do shows like this. We need people to cover the content. If you're a Call of Duty writer, go to ESFI and ask them if they need somebody to cover content, Do something that's really important to help everybody. It's important that we figure out a way to get the person right now who's not listening to this show on Xbox Live, who plays Call of Duty, who loves the game. We need to help them understand who the best players are, why MLG is important, and I use MLG because I believe they're going to have the game next year, as an example. But whoever supports the game you love, you need to have something around that to help grow it. So I think the way that forward is probably not so much in the hands of the players who call themselves pro, but as much as the bigger community around it. I mean, don't get me wrong. We need Hastro. We do. We need those people who are champions. Fwiz. I mean, these are people I know who I love. I think are so respectful and they get it, and I would support anything they're doing. That's where you need to be. Accomplished, get the big picture, and then supportive of the kind of content we need to grow it outside of the people who already know who Hastro is. We need to figure out who are not familiar with the optics and the leverages and the other teams. How do we get to them? And that is the word infrastructure, the content, the media. So that's my approach, at least, as to what we need.
And
I think Sundance might be a. Oh, sorry, Scott.
That's it. I mean, I would echo it. Again, like I look at the game of Call of Duty, and I go, everyone compares stuff to Counter-Strike, and everyone compares to StarCraft now, especially. Where is Call of Duty's Team Liquid? Where is Call of Duty's Got Frag? Where is Call of Duty's ES Reality when Quake was a game of note? Every one of these successful games that had their time in the sun for not a season or two, but for years, generally had several language sites, each their own, that was the home for the fan. Right now, Counter-Strike, Got Frag is dead. The Counter-Strike community lives on HalfLifeTV.org. Where is that for you guys? That gets back to this, you're all everywhere, right? And again, you have some of your heroes, you need more of them, and you need this unification. Simple as that. You need that place to call home. It's not going to be MLG's content hub anymore. That's not going to be your home. That's where you're going to compete, right? They've already kind of said that. So who's doing that? Who's doing your Got Frag? Who's doing your Team Liquid? Is there one? And I'm not saying there isn't, because there could very well be one out there. I'm asking more than stating.
Yeah, and I think to talk about the infrastructure, I think Sundance is a good person too, because I think they're doing something amazing to help that infrastructure. And he stated this earlier on our podcast that we do as well, the Losers Bracket, me and Jerry, and the other people as well. That he stated earlier that if Call of Duty comes back and things like that, they're looking at every possible way to make sure that casters can be heard this time at events. And I think that's a really big thing, to me at least. I mean, I went to the event in Raleigh last year, not this year, and I just like being able to hear something that I'm there, and I feel like you're going to see a little bit, not everything, of course not everyone, but a little bit more of that crossover from games if you allow people to get excited from hearing people like Golden Boy's voice and Corey Dunn's voice. I mean, Corey Dunn has a legendary voice, and I'm telling you, his voice alone can attract some people, and even StarCraft people. We just got to be able to hear it.
Prime example, this show right here is a Call of Duty podcast. You do Call of Duty every week, right, Emily? That's the only game you cover?
Correct.
How big is your game? It's huge, right? How big is it, Sundance? It's huge, right? How many boxes y'all sold? Everyone has all this swag. How many people are watching right now? I can turn on my stream. One of my not the greatest StarCraft players in the world can turn their stream on and will destroy this. That's sad. That is kind of sad. You're fragmented. You're huge and fragmented. Y'all, everyone should be watching this.
If I can add into that, and I know what you're feeling, Scott, because our Wednesday night StarCraft gets higher numbers in the stream, and I wish in this moment it didn't. I wish it didn't because the game is so large that, you know, I think a lot of young players, and this is a little bit off topic, but I think it's true. I think they think that Kurt and Scott and I are competing. We're not competing. We're in the same game. If we're competing for a player, that's such a small competition in the bigger thing of what we're trying to do. And all of us, well, I know Kurt has, and I certainly know Scott has, we throw rocks at Sundance all the time behind the scenes of what he can do better. We're always telling him. Now, we may not stand up on Twitter and yell at Sundance and try to get, but we have suggestions and comments and concerns, and we're pulling and tugging all the time. We do this, right? It's not that we're known or we're respected. We get educated. We make a suggestion to Sundance, and he comes back and he educates us about why that's not realistic or it doesn't work that way. But we need places to play. We need brands that represent good teams, and we need the Call of Duty community to make it their charge. It's going to be those players right now who have the swag or the feeling that they are pros. Your ability to really live up, because you have a talent. You're very good at a game. But you might have a talent like making buggy whips. It might be kind of useless unless you live in Amish country. So you want to do the job of making sure that your talent is important. And the only way you're going to make that talent important, you have to do the hard work. Sundance can't do it. SirScoots Scott can't do it. Kurt or myself can't do it. Even ESFI can't do it. It's only going to be the people who are on Xbox Live, wherever Call of Duty is being played, getting people interested in the competitive nature. And that is what it really, to me, is about. And I think that's important, to never miss the fact that just because you're good, the rest does not follow.
And I think this topic's important, and I want to hear Sundance's opinion real quick. But I want to make. Oh, we gotta go.
Oh, no. I was gonna say I have a question direct towards him, but go ahead.
Okay, well, let me just add something real quick that I think another big thing, and someone in chat mentioned this earlier too. I think another big thing is that you guys don't have to thrive completely off of MLG. MLG is not your babysitter. You know, you guys, this isn't something where you have to, it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be so complicated. Let's see some actual community-ran events. CSN is one of the only ones that I've seen that has been actually running community-ran events for Call of Duty. And they've done a pretty great job at it. I mean, support them, guys. Let's see a little bit more than 20 teams signed up for their thing. The New Egg Landfest tournament just happened. We all know according to a lot of people, the rule set wasn't that great, but it only got 100 teams. Come on, for a million players, 100 teams should be kind of a drop in the bucket. Let's support them. Don't just. It's okay to not agree with rule sets and things like that. But what I'm saying is support them by at least trying to get the registration out there and advertising a little bit.
Now, in regards to promotion and advertising, Sundance, you do an amazing job with MLG getting your events and things that you're doing out there. How do you feel that by people at home or organizations can do by promoting their streams or even just Call of Duty as an esport in itself?
Well, I think one of the things that, and I don't know, some people may disagree with this, but I think that there's a saturation within Call of Duty. There's an issue, right? So Scoots' point of he's got a StarCraft player streaming right now, and he's got a ton of people watching. Well, StarCraft is unique in that more people watch than actually play. A lot of people have ladder anxiety, and it's a unique game on a lot of levels. But the audience has been programmed to watch because it's like it's the way you learn the game for most people. The problem with a shooter inherently is that there's so many people playing them that think they're the best in the world. They just pick it up and they go out there and they get whatever they get, and they don't necessarily understand that it's because every year with Call of Duty it's a new game. So I think the number one thing is a few people should maybe stop streaming as much as they're streaming. Just because you can doesn't mean you should, in my opinion. Okay, and I've seen it a lot. Where come check out my stream, pro player, and then I'm like, wait, has this guy ever even competed at an event? Has he ever finished top 16 at one of ours? Why is he calling himself pro? And I hate that phrase, and I hate that we've used it for so long. I really wish that we had never coined the whole pro team, pro player thing. I wish we had just waited because it was too soon. Now everybody thinks they're a pro. Number one, I think fewer people should
blame
stream.
you? Really? Did you just
Sure,
say
go ahead.
Sweet.
I'm going to say that Sundance has said this numerous
Holy
times,
shit.
so this is not the first time he said it, and I know he means it. I really do.
So my next sponsorship letter back, I can go, just because Sundance thinks you're a pro does not mean you are. That's cool with you?
You know you can blame me for everything. You know that.
In 2008, you called him a pro. And he's still, anyway.
But number two, if you want to promote this, guess what? The best way, if players want to see it succeed, if guys want to get a chance, if guys want to get out there, take a minute, coordinate, so this show, for example, or let's say somebody should organize on Thursday nights at 9 p.m., teams are going to scrim, and we're going to organize, do what Total Biscuit does, or what Sean does, what Day9 does. Program things regularly, get people accustomed to being able to tune in and see it, and provide people with hooks, right? Places where they can get hooked into it, can be educated about the scene, and become a part of the scene. And then the other side of it, which unfortunately there's nothing that any of the players out there can really do other than stop flaming the developers, and Activision is, give us time to work with them so we can actually get a platform for you established. Let us work with them around Elite and around events like XP so that this stuff actually becomes an order of magnitude bigger. I'm having conversations with them where I'm trying to convince them not to give Ridley Scott money to produce videos that nobody watches, but to actually help grow the top level of the community so that in 3 years people haven't said that this franchise has jumped the sharks, so that in 3 years there's new players coming in who are excited about it. Because the fear is with a new title every single year, guess what you can't do? You can't build something like a Counter-Strike, which is going to have a long history and get an attached audience base, or what StarCraft has done. Well, yeah, they're going to roll out an update, but the core game is the core game. It's just, it's an expansion. But every year we've got to go through this. Well, the game plays different. There's issues because 2 different developers are doing it. So one doesn't have LAN, the new one doesn't have split screen. You can't run a tournament. It's, we got to get this stuff, taken care of before we're going to be in a position where this advertising is really going to be going someplace impactful. The most important thing is educate people to the fact that there's a competitive scene. The rest will take care of itself. Don't educate people to the fact that there is a competitive scene, thinking you're going to get sponsored because of it. Let's grow it first. Let's grow the top level of it. Because I'll tell you what, we don't even know how people are going to be playing the game this year, right? Are we going to be going with the standard rules that you've seen in the PC scene for a while? Are we going to be going with search and destroy only? Are we going to be going with the mixed bag that we've run in the past? Nobody knows, because we don't know what's going to make it stickier going from Title A to Title B. And I've got more information than anybody because I'm working with Activision on this. Trust me, you got to relax and just go with it for a little while and show that you can grow the audience of shows like this and create a respectful and an additive scene so that they're going to say, this is worth our time. Because keep in mind, of the 30 million units sold, that most of that's to the core gamer. It's not to the hardcore competitive gamer.
Yeah,
if I can hop
Jerry,
in
I just want to. Oh, I'm sorry.
I was going to say something, to what you said. I mean, I think a lot of players miss that. They ask, you can ask what, and Scott said it earlier. I think it's really important. Will you sponsor me? And Scott said, well, it depends. Where there is to play, where there is. So let's say you are a player out there, right? Watch this train. Hey, Scott, will you sponsor me? Scott, hey, Sundance, is this game going to be played? Sundance says, hey, developer, sponsors, is there a business here? That's the train. That's where it starts. It doesn't begin with vVv. It doesn't be. I mean, there's a reason that I'm able to support rhythm games and Scott can't. But there is also a reason that I don't support. I don't know. Name a game I don't support. There's many of them.
Farmville.
I was thinking more of something more legitimate that actually, like Battlefield. Battlefield's a very legitimate title, but I don't support it. It's not there yet, right? Battlefield doesn't have that yet. But if Sundance says, right, if Sundance says I can do that, or we're going to do that, I'm going to change my perspective. I'm going to look at Battlefield. But that's a whole process, and it's not if I like it, it's not if Scott likes it, it's not if Sundance likes it. It's if we can build a business around that title. And believe it or not, you may not realize this, that developers make or break this. And I'll throw it right back at Sundance. I mean, we see this in the fighting game community with Capcom, and we see it in different spaces. You cannot do this without that whole chain, that entire chain of support. So it doesn't stop. It doesn't start or stop with me or Kurt or Scott or even Sundance. It really is bigger than that.
Yeah, I think we lost Sundance temporarily, but just to note what he was talking about with Day 9 and his shows and stuff like that. My thing is, you guys need to support those shows that are doing that right now. As of right now, there is Rage Quit Mondays going on, which I know quite a few of you know about. You guys should have both their stream open and our stream open, or this stream open right now. Like, everyone in here should be watching them as well if you're interested in their content. Are we back? Can you hear me all right?
I'm back. Hello? Hello, hello?
We're back. We're back.
Are we live, Emily?
Yeah.
I think Sundance
Okay.
just dropped it, I think is what happened.
But no, I mean, you guys should have that open too, and actually support a show that it does everything every Monday, just like we're talking about that Day 9 did and things like that. Support those guys, and there's a lot of other shows too, and there's a lot of other tournaments do the exact same thing, and do the exact same thing that Scump is doing. The pro people that are in here right now. We jumped up in viewers by like 200 viewers from Scump going, hey, you guys need to watch this. And Scump did that on his own. Let's see a little bit more pros doing that. Let's see Nadeshot doing it. Let's see Rambo doing it. Let's see everybody else that calls
on
himself.
his Twitch name. Damn, no. Yeah, that's not bad. No, kind of switching it up a little bit. Now, back to some sponsorship questions. What should players expect from organizations and vice versa? I know you've talked about what you guys look for with teams when picking them up. Now, if you pick up a team, what do you expect from them? How do they conduct themselves on social media? How do you expect them to act at events? Do they need to be looking for other things? Do they need to stop posting personal things? I mean, how do you kind of view all that? And I'll start with Scoots.
That's a big question. Well, obviously, let's assume that we have a place to play. Sundance has given us a $12 million tour in 2012 in honor of 2012. You'll hear about that this week, about $12 million, I think, just for Call of Duty. But I'll let him bust that later this week. Hopefully, there's a Call of Duty Reddit that's blowing up with the two guys that run it right now. So we look for a lot of things. Obviously, a general skill set. Unfortunately, some of the top teams, again, you do have a roster issue. You got players coming and going. Let's just take, for example, this last MLG season. Leverage did quite well, has changed their roster, and is no longer with their sponsor, right? So there's some upheaval there within a period of one season. I heard, and I don't know if this is true, that their other Call of Duty team is gone as well. So did they break up after they won the championships? Why did they break up? Like, if I have a championship team and they all decided to go off to college, all the money I put in to get that team ready to win that championship, to then use that hurrah, like, to go forward into the new year, is like a wasted effort. I can't say 4 years ago this team did really good. That's old news. My sponsor can't engage with those players. So, there has to be a consistency that unfortunately doesn't exist, so that's outside the player's realm. But I would hope a team would come to me and go, hey, we have been together for a really long time. This is how we did. We're all still together, or maybe one or two guys have left for whatever reasons, but there's some stability. If you come to me and say, hey, I am a player, I placed with this team here at MLG, then I switched to this team, then I went to this team, stop writing the email, because I'm not hiring you. I need a team that, again, I'm different than Jerry. Jerry might grab a captain and go, make me a team. But I kind of need a unit. That's what we do. And yeah, you might not be the best, but you better be pretty fucking good, and you better have something of note to show me, because that's the brand I represent. I'm not. Again, as Jerry and I have said, we're kind of different. So I know you'll all be young, So you're not going to have a lot of job experience. You're not going to have a lot of marketing experience. I get that. You're a different demographic that I'm talking to. But you better show me some maturity even if you're 17, 18 years old, because I'm putting my brand and my sponsors, more importantly, brand on your back proverbially. Literally and proverbially. You represent what we all do. And that, you know, we don't roll the dice and go, man, I hope this works out. We would just rather not roll the dice, right? So, again, I guess get your shit together. Get your Twitters, get your Facebooks, get your persona together. You know, like Greg's a prime example. You know, Idra, you can call him bad boy. He doesn't like it. I don't necessarily believe he's a bad boy. It's not a fake persona. It's just Greg being Greg. He will win a lot. He will lose a lot. But he will always be Greg and have a certain charisma and skill set to him. Those are both important to us. Team game, like I said earlier, all 4 of you, all 5 of you, depending on what game we're talking about, don't have to be that, like, perfect interviewer, but a couple of you guys need to be that rep within our rep, if that makes sense. And you guys have some of that. Don't get me wrong. Like, I've talked to some of the top players. You've got your swagger players who can give a good interview, who can show the Kool-Aid of Call of Duty, but you need to all collectively stop acting with a sense of entitlement. And again, like I said at the very beginning, quit looking at StarCraft. Quit looking at Counter-Strike, because they're both decades old. Decades old in the basic same gameplay, slightly different games. Call of Duty doesn't have that. We can go back to the old Call of Duties, but give me any of those superstars who are still playing it, who are still names I can market, right? Idris played the game of StarCraft for years, right? Guys like Nothing, guys like Fraud, etc., who play for other players, right, Kurt, have been playing for years. So part of it is your scene just needs some time to keep growing. So we can look back and go, in 2011, and it's now 2014, that kid was kicking ass, and he's still kicking ass. You're not there yet. And don't think that you have to instantly be there. So like we talked about swagger, right? You can all have as much positive swagger in the world as you want, but you don't have the results to back your swagger up quite yet, in the sense of a global esport. It will get there. If you do a lot of the things we're talking about, it will maybe get there quicker. No, I don't think any of us on this show are like your answer. But there are some inherent truths to what we say, that if you help this, this, and this, you're only going to like help your scene and certainly not damage it. So there you go.
All right, now switching over to you, Kurt, how do you feel that, I mean, this was kind of a response back to the community. How do you feel that organizations sometimes, I guess, spotlight a specific player more than a team? Do you feel that's negative, or?
I think it can be both. To be honest, I think it actually can be both. I'm one of the few that will probably say it. I mean, it can be negative if it impacts the team. If it's something that actually impacts the unity of a team, then I could see it being negative. I've kind of seen that before in the Call of Duty community, where one player, and I'm not going to mention the names here, but if one player sort of overshadows the team, you get this kind of baby melodrama going on, which is understandable to an extent. But what people have to understand, and the Call of Duty community specifically has to understand, is there is a reason behind that. And most of the time, more often than not, it's not because one's uglier than the other. I mean, to put it bluntly, it's really not that. That's not really the big thing. The big thing is everything that they're doing. To me, I know I keep picking on Nadeshot, but it's a good thing. Nadeshot, I think, is doing a great job with what he's doing. He's streaming a lot. Scump is another one. Scump has just started streaming and getting ridiculous numbers, and he's sent a ton of viewers this way. They both have Twitter. They're both doing the Facebook thing. They're both representing their team well. Nadeshot got a ton of fans from going on Scott's show live on 3.
Yeah.
And gave one of our best interviews ever. The guy was nailing it, So
yeah.
You have your heroes, right? Or well, in his community, he might not be called a hero, but like he's a spokesperson. He's got an opinion, and he presents it well. So
he gained fans outside of Call of Duty that day. And his whole point, he made a great point. He gained me as a follower, and I can guarantee you, gaining me as followers in the Call of Duty community is not an easy thing to do, because I usually tend to get annoyed fairly quickly. But he gained me as a follower that day, and the same thing for Scump. I can appreciate Scump doing that too. So I mean, my big thing is I want people to realize that there's a reason if a team is going, we want to put you on a tiny bit of a pedestal, you know. I mean, nothing, for instance, with EG was noted. Nothing for and fraud, for that matter. Fraud for a long time was put on as the guy. He was put in the Kingston HyperX advertisements, and now it's nothing with the Gunner, and it's in control with the Gunner and the Steel Series and the Kingston. EG does the exact same thing, but there is a reason behind it. This is a calculated decision. It's not, we're just going to pick you because you look the best, or we're going to pick you because just randomly we're going to throw a hat. You know, there's a reason behind it, and if there's a reason behind it, that means that every player can eventually get to that point, you know, where we don't have to just support one player. We can say this whole team, this whole team we have is amazing at supporting our sponsors, and we're going to prove it to you.
Now, see, touching back on a little bit about what Scoots said before, doesn't that kind of go into representing things as growing as an esports community, such as you were talking about your Twitter, I believe it was you were talking about marketing specific things, you know, headsets, things like that. It goes off of, is that marketing ability to you, or?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's definitely a little bit of both. I mean, I would say it has to do with how well they're marketing themselves and how they're marketing their team. And it also has, you know, just in general, not just marketing, but in general, just acting right. You know, and just being a decent human being. You know, I mean, me personally, I look at things a tad bit different. I'm a stickler. I'm a real big stickler when it comes to professionalism and the being nice. I'm really a big stickler with that, and considering we picked up a very controversial player in Juan and Terran and StarCraft community. You would think I wasn't, but I am. I'm very, very hard on people. I mean, I make people GG on ladder. I'm one of those guys. I'm one of the people that, you know, if you upload something to YouTube, you better be saying GG to the team you're playing. You know, I'm just like that. And not necessarily, you know, EG might not necessarily be like that. vVv might not necessarily be like that. But that also comes down to, you know, back to researching the team you're applying for too. It's possible that you feel like you just can't do that. You can't be one of those people, and that's fine too.
Okay, now kind of touching into, Jerry, I'll direct this towards you. What Sundance had mentioned about streaming and how he said, you know, sometimes people do it a little bit too much in advertising things that aren't necessarily true, such as being a pro player or whatnot. How do you feel, you know, for a player that does stream consistently? Do you think that's negative or a positive thing for you?
I mean, it's a quality thing, right? I mean, look, if I was a filmmaker and I said, hey, come to my website, I made a new movie, and every time you came to my website, it was crappy, and all you knew about film was my website, you would think that my website, that films were stupid. Every time you tell the world, hey, come look at my montage, my movie, and it's crappy, I mean, to be honest, you're not helping. I mean, and that's not me. I'm just saying, honestly, if you show me a website about knitting and I'm not interested about knitting, but I go there and it's interesting and you're all of a sudden gossiping about the people who knit, I might be interested, as odd as that may sound. But if I'm a person who plays Call of Duty and I go to your headshot thing and I'm like, you know what, I've seen 9 million of these. Do I really have to watch one more headshot montage? Seriously? I might get bored of that. So I think that we are at a point where you have to be creative. And I think creativity is really important. So, I mean, would you really watch your own work? Seriously? When you make a montage video, I mean, do you watch them yourself? I mean, that's the question you have to ask yourself. Would you even care about the things you make? I mean that sincerely. Because a lot of times I can't believe I get a sponsorship request and someone will give me like a link of like 50 YouTube videos they made, and I look at them and I'm like, do you really watch your own stuff? Like, do you really think I care? Do you care? Like, do you really watch all of everybody who, I mean, do you really? Or do you think, oh, Hastro made a montage, I will too, right? Don't do that. Do not do that. That is bad. I can't stress how horrible that is. You know, Spielberg made a film, so should I. You're not Spielberg. There's an art to presenting yourself. And I prefer the player who says to me, Jerry, I do things that are pretty awesome in game, and I've got a lot of footage. but I don't want to make a shitty montage. What do you think I should do with this? Then I can start saying, well, I think you should tell a story about you as a player or about Call of Duty as a game. Do something interesting. So yeah, I do think too much content is crappy, and this doesn't just apply to Call of Duty, it goes across the board. But I do really think that if you just throw up another useless, senseless video, you're drowning out the good stuff.
Yeah, and I think one of the things we've noticed, especially with our lair, is the fans absolutely love seeing the players outside of game. You know, and again, we could talk about people watch StarCraft streams to be educated and entertained in a sense, and that's different than watching a guy, I think, Call of Duty. I think it's slightly different while you're watching. Probably less education on the Call of Duty than you might. There's just different games, right? But needless to say, we put a poll on our website saying, hey, you want to see more streams of players, or do you want to see behind-the-scenes stuff? And they went nuts for the behind-the-scenes stuff. So, like to Jerry's point, like, how about you do less montages and you do some vlogs about your team or about your day or about you as the player. And again, back to this whole, I think these kids, and I'm going to call you all kids because I'm 45 years old, so if you don't like it, tough shit. But you're all kids to me. Sundance is even a kid to me. They're making montages because they make money. They're not making montages, or there's the possibility of making money. They're not making montages because they're fantastic content. And not to say that some people that are making montages are not making absolutely fantastic montages. That is also true. But again, if you make your money from taking your in-game footage of Xbox Live, scrims or whatever, and turn it into montages, and people on YouTube watch it and you make money that way, you're still not a pro Call of Duty player. You're a pro Call of Duty entertainer. Pro players get paid to play the game as its skill, not as a recording tool, right? So again, and I'm calling out the YouTube millionaires who are pros because they make money on their content, not at tournaments and not on their winnings there. That's what makes a pro, okay? I would say the same thing to the StarCraft guys that are incredibly popular who make their money on the streams, but not on a pro player salary or traveling to events. That's different. You're entertaining for sure, but you're not a pro player. Again, I've won money playing Counter-Strike. The last thing I would ever call myself is a pro Counter-Strike player. Even when I won the money the next week, right? It was laughable. So, again, like, stop inundating with this crappy content. Show us, again, back to why I want you as a player for me, build that player's brand, right? I'll call out Nadeshot. Nadeshot, keep building that brand, dude, because then SteelSeries is going to want you in a commercial with an EG shirt on, right? So you're doing the right thing. You're getting your brand out there. Last little rant on branding. I will never, collectively, I don't run EG all by myself. I will never allow a team to come to EG unless I kick and scream my way through it with another name. So if you're a Halo team that wants to join EG, if you're a Call of Duty team that wants to join EG, get ready to drop your name. Because I'm not recruiting a name. I'm recruiting 4 or 5 players, whatever game, and I'm building an EG division. So I'll tell you right now, if you're interested in typing me an email, get ready to lose whatever you've called yourself. Because you're going to be Evil Genius's Call of Duty team, or Evil Genius's Halo team, or Evil Genius's Counter-Strike team. And that is a big hang-up in the community. And I don't mean to make light of it, because I got so much pushback this last year. Well, no, we are this, we are that. And I go, well, maybe someone else will pick up this or that. But you would come play for Evil Geniuses. And I know a lot of the top teams, go both ways on that. Some people are okay with the secondary name. It just is something that we never would want to do. Because, again, I want to build you, the player, and your brand, right? Nadeshot. I keep using him because, obviously, Emily's right here. It's easy. I could say Aches. I could say a bunch of guys, right? And then I want to build the EG brand next to it, right? Your team, your division, our brands. And a leverage, a fear, all those other things, an instinct kind of get in the way of that, right? I would very much never try to do that, I guess.
No, I mean, Scott, I want to hop in because I often have allowed that to happen, but I don't at a certain level. Like our Gears of War team that is fully sponsored is VV Gaming. That's not up for discussion. If you want to be a Call of Duty team who comes to us for a sponsorship and says, Jerry, I want travel and I want the full ride, no, you're going to be known as VV Gaming. I don't care if you're Leverage or Fear or, Uncle Woody's ass wipes. I really don't care, and I mean that. Nobody cares. Our sponsors don't care what you're called. I'm sure that I only share SteelSeries with Scott, but I'm sure all of Scott's sponsors, as well as mine, don't care what you're called. They've never heard of you. I mean that. They don't know who you are. They trust us to manage you and to make sure that whatever you're called is good. Well, for us, that means that whatever your team's name, Applesauce, Fly Society, Fear, it goes on, we're not interested. Not if you want that level of support and investment. Because you got a team name, and that's cute, but I can promise you our sponsors don't care. And that reality is not negotiable, at least from my standpoint.
Yeah, I'm just to chime in. I think we're going to close up after this, but just to chime in here that I'm probably the only one that's a little bit indifferent about this, and not necessarily that I'm indifferent. It's just if the investment's there, I still get a good return on it, and it's very little for us, I will still probably do it. I know Scott's shaking his head over there, but if the investment is still little for me, I would still probably do it. But at the same time, in my opinion, you need to come to me, or anyone for that matter on the panel, you need to come to us with an open mind. I can't stand teams that come to, I hate you, Jerry, come to me with a just completely closed mind. Guess what? We're going to stay check 6. I'm just going to throw this name out there. I'm going to say Fear. We're going to say check 6 Fear, whether you like it or not. We also are not going to play on anything but Astro A40s because we like our cute little tags. We're not going to, we want our jerseys, but we completely separate jerseys, the one you have for your StarCraft team. These, I swear to God, these are demands I have had from Call of Duty teams before, and I have laughed them completely off of Skype.
If you allow another team to have a separate name and you spend any marketing dollars towards building that brand, then all you've done is help them possibly walk away from you. Simple as that. If you build, we'll use leverage. I spend all this money all year long on quantic leverage, quantic leverage, quantic leverage. Leverage then says, oh, leverage has all these fans. Leverage has more fans than quantic. And then leverage has the leverage, right? But it's all on Mark's dollar. Mark sent them everywhere, right? So why would you, if they're going to leave you, they're going to leave you. You don't always stay together. Teams come and go. But why would you ever market another entity team-wise, not player-wise? I'm all about player names and marketing them and the players, whatever they want to call themselves. But why would you market another team that could spin itself right back off after you spent all this money and made them bigger and better? Why would you ever even go down that road if you don't have to? Again, you want to come play with us? Great. We're called Evil Geniuses. Here's your jersey. That's where I differ from you guys big time. Big time.
And I really wouldn't argue with Scott's point. I completely agree with it. It's just you got to understand where I'm coming from. I'm sort of scrounging for the table scraps sometimes. I have to find opportunities where I can get it. That being said, the likelihood, especially after doing it already once, of me picking up a team that refuses to drop their name, especially considering that just immediately means to me that they have a closed mind about everything, is very, very low. I don't necessarily look down on other people that are doing it, but if you are spending a ton of money on your team and you're doing it, I do think you have something wrong with you. Because it's like Scott said, it's kind of leading yourself up for failure.
And again, I'm not dogging the team. Especially you come together, you and the buddies. Again, I ran a shitty Counter-Strike team for a lot of years called UGP, unsponsored. So I get the idea. You and your buddies get together. You have a team. We're going to call ourselves the Mighty Buttons. I don't know, whatever you call yourself. And you build that. That's your brand. I get that, right? But at some point along your journey to pro playerdom, get ready to drop it. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it doesn't have a place somewhere along the way, because you got to name yourself somewhere on game battles. You got to start somewhere. You got to build. All I'm saying is when you get to this level, be prepared for us to say, hey, all right, that was your team. Now you play for Evil Geniuses, or now you play for SK or Fnatic, etc. And maybe we're the only ones that really are that strong about it. But I am so strong about this. Anyway.
All right, now sorry to cut you off here. We're just going to kind of close this up a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start with you, Kurt, and just kind of talk a little bit about how esports can match up to the traditional forms of sports in your eyes.
Oh, goodness. If you want to close up, that's an awful topic to close up on. Um, I'm going to try to keep it short. I suppose, I mean, we talked a little bit about this in a Kotaku article that myself, Jerry, and Mark from Quantic actually did a little bit with a guy named Tim Poon. That's his name. He from a Kotaku article. I advise everyone to go look at that article. You can probably search eSports on Kotaku and you'll find it. We talked a little bit about it there and sort of the traditional sort of sports mediums. I mean, to keep it short and sweet, I would say one thing is trying to make. I say we continue to still focus on the games. I mean, I don't think we should completely change focus from the games and sort of have this where we have everything becomes a melodramatic, reality series kind of thing. However, a little bit of that can really go a long way. A little bit of that sewage wars or storage wars or, the Real Housewives of New Jersey, just a little bit of that in esports can really help us go a long way. Like Scott said, one of the most interesting things that EG gets, one of the biggest numbers they get on their YouTube, one of the most popular things that they get when it comes to interviews is the behind-the-scenes stuff. What is Idra really like? What does Idra look like lifting weights? What does he drink? What does he drink in his protein shake? What is In Control's dog's name? I mean, In Control's dog now has a Twitter probably. So I mean, it's everybody loves that stuff, and if we can continue to support that a little bit, I think we can go a really long way. But we don't need to go overboard with it either. We don't need to turn this into, like I said, Jersey Shore or anything like that. Also, another point we made in that article were statistics. I think statistics within games is a big thing. Anybody that's familiar with Counter-Strike, to me still, and Jerry would disagree, one of the best inventions ever for esports at the time was GameSense from Godfrag. I loved some of the stuff that the GameSense did when it spit out all those stats on the same page. Oh, yeah. I remember, I think Scott's talked about this too. I remember the very first time it was released, they released this whole article about, not nothing, but I would say Element did this and this many rounds at this time in this country at this period, and it was all these ridiculous stats. And if we have those, I really think that's something that just adds something interesting. It automatically becomes this good versus evil, this lower this underdog versus the elite Korean player. It all becomes this great, real big story. And just as the last final note, at the very least, I know this hasn't anything to do with Call of Duty, but the Star Nation movie is another one that's coming out right now. We just interviewed him on the Losers Bracket 2. It's the documentary about StarCraft 2 and some of that, and they seem to be pulling a little bit of that. They want to pull that good versus evil and that popular versus non-popular and the full-time player versus non-full-time player. This is stuff that the Call of Duty community can do as well to really show that this is not just some crazy, teenagers in their bedroom eating gamer grub. So anyway, Jerry, on to you, buddy.
Oh, no, hold on. Before we go, I'm going to close everybody out a little bit. Do you, so for everyone in here, Kurt is with Check 6. Do you have any plans this year for Call of Duty?
Did you ask that to?
I'm sorry. Did you ask that to everyone or just?
No, to you.
Oh, to me. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I would say if the opportunity arises, and this is such an awful answer, but I feel like, I'm sorry, I can't really answer it. If the opportunity arises, number one, I'm not the only person on Check 6. We have an amazing team where I'm not making decisions solely by myself. I would say if the opportunity arises and the investment is, not a whole hell of a lot, I would say yes. It's something that I would be interested in, at the very least, looking at again. But that's really up to the community.
All right, Jerry, on to you.
Yeah, we just did a big esports survey where we sort of sampled our community, and the one thing that we got back, the game they most want to see quality content around, they said, Jerry, please find a team and players who will do good quality content and do Call of Duty. So yeah, we're 100% committed to find the right partners in Call of Duty, but I have to admit, we haven't found it yet. We've got a couple really good prospects who've applied, but at the end of the day, we know our community plays Call of Duty. We have a lot of Call of Duty fans, but it's not there yet. So yeah, we're committed, But at the same time, I think it's going to take a really good partner, and I'm not so sure I've seen anything out there that says that anyone's ready, but hopefully somebody steps out of the woodwork and knows that. So yeah.
All right, Scoots.
Shall we get a drum roll, Scott? Drum.
Well, Emily, on your show, I would like to be the first to officially announce something. No. Just kidding.
Uh-oh.
No. I think it's safe to say.
So you're moving for Quantic Gaming? That's so weird.
Oh, the troll got trolled. Touche. Touche, Jerry.
Odd to me.
Touche, Waldorf. Nicely done. We're definitely looking at the console market, and we have been for the last year plus, ever since we dived in with our Street Fighter guys. It's something some of our sponsors are very interested in, getting into that demographic penetration. So most certainly, and as we land more and more mainstream sponsors that aren't endemic to PC manufacturer, if you will, that maybe care a little less about what happens in the console world, we get even more excited about it because the numbers are there. They are growing. So, I spent a lot of time, I went to every MLG stop this last year, save one, and I did watch Halo. I talked to some Halo players at several events. I did watch Call of Duty. I talked to Call of Duty players. I still talk to both sides of those scenes, if you will. And again, like at the end of the day, if you were to ask me right now, am I signing a Call of Duty team? No, they have nowhere to play. So then I defer to Sundance, and again, we're waiting. A lot of us are waiting to see what his plans are for a lot of things. If there's some magical Call of Duty circuit that gives me the ROI that we need to make this possible on our level of how we engage stuff, then you could very well see an EG Call of Duty team, an EG Halo team, etc. So, but we don't know. We're kind of waiting because he is the playing field, at least in North America. Obviously, there's also global events. There's Call of Duty in Europe, etc. But again, we kind of look there first. That's our home ROI. So we're kind of waiting. Again, if he does announce it, it doesn't mean it's magically going to happen. If we find a team that fits with what we like to do, one never knows. Simple as that.
All right, perfect way to close. So you guys all heard it here. It is not out of range to think that people will be offering new teams for Call of Duty sponsorship for this season. Like they said, stick around and wait for the news on MLG, and they will go from there. I wanted to thank all of you guys for coming on the show and taking the time out. Sorry we lost Sundance somewhere along the way here. But thank you, Scoot, Jerry, and Kurt. I appreciate you guys stopping on out. And thank you all for watching the show tonight. If you've enjoyed what you've seen, go ahead and press that follow button on the stream. We are here weekly every Monday night at 8:30 Eastern. It was a pleasure to have such great guests tonight, and I hope we'll all see you guys again at some point, hopefully with announcements of Call of Duty teams. And I would also like to thank John from eFrag TV for assisting us with our production tonight with our stream. Now, eFrag TV is an eSports shoutcasting company for multiple games, and you can check them out at efragtv.com. Once again, thank you guys all for coming out and watching the stream. I hope you enjoyed everything that you heard tonight, and follow us all on Twitter, and make sure to follow these great gentlemen. Thanks so much. Have a great night.